For the first time in two NFL seasons with dealing with COVID-19, the Packers have their first major situation with the pandemic on their hands as more than 15 players and coaches lie on their COVID-19 reserve list. I'm Joey here at Underage Packers, and today I wanted to tell you about not only all of those players, but also tell you how I think the Packers will look to replace those key players in this upcoming game against Minnesota. So the Packers have actually done a really decent job at containing COVID and staying away from it these past 2 years since they've had to deal with it. I think last year the worst situation was Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams having COVID and Aaron Jones having an injury. Some combination of that where all three of the starting running backs was out and COVID had some part to do with it. And they went out there against the 49ers with Dexter Williams and maybe Mike Weber as their starting running backs. We obviously dealt with Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams having COVID earlier in this season, but now here we are this year, and I definitely say, I'm not able to say this for sure, I don't have the exact number on it, but I definitely say right now with more than 15 on it this week, that is the most they've had on the COVID-19 reserve list at one time. However, if you look around the league, really, the Packers still are doing a really decent job at containing this outbreak because there's teams like the Denver Broncos last week, the Washington football team, the Ravens, the Cleveland Browns, who really got bad situations with over like 30 players on their COVID-19 list with a lot more starters than the Packers have. And it's a tricky situation here with Green Bay because you're like, man, you don't want anybody to be sick and you don't want to be happy that a guy, Amari Rodgers, although he might not be a fan favorite, and he's definitely not as important to the team's success as Devontae Adams. It's like you don't want to be necessarily rooting that one guy got sick over the other. You don't want anybody getting sick here. However, the depth pieces, while these players that are getting sick aren't starters, they are depth pieces on a team that is already pretty banged up, and they are certainly being asked to play an elevated role. So to see all these depth players get hurt will definitely come into play this weekend against Minnesota. So there's two big position groups that have been hit really hard with COVID, and add that into a combination of many players already injured, and those position groups are pretty much decimated. The first one I wanted to talk about is the tight end room, as big dog Mercedes Lewis was put on the COVID list earlier this week, and then on Wednesday, Tyler Davis was placed on that list as well. And Dominique Daphne is already dealing with an ankle injury that might keep him out of this game. So you're looking at that tight end room, and it's just Josiah DeGuara on the active roster as of now. You'll definitely see a lot of one-game COVID elevations. One possible situation for the tight end room would be Bronson Kafusi, who Aaron Rodgers is a big fan of. So we'll see if he gets his opportunity to step up. But really, the blocking for the tight ends is really going to be hurting. Josiah DeGuara has certainly done a really good job at stepping up this year with Robert Tonyan going down to injury and him pretty much sharing the receiving duties at tight end with Mercedes Lewis. So Josiah DeGuara, big chance here. Obviously, hopefully Mercedes Lewis is asymptomatic and he can get back for this game on Sunday. The special teams department also took quite the hit, something they're not very good at, hitting or catching. But anyways, punter Corey Bojorquez and receiver Amari Rodgers are also on that list. Once again, they were placed on the COVID list early enough in the week where if they're asymptomatic, they could possibly test out and play Sunday. But obviously, already poorly performing special teams group does not need to lose two of its starters throughout the season. As far as returner goes, that's a little bit easier of an answer. Chandon Sullivan, I'd say, is who I think would get those snaps. But then Corey, it's really interesting scenario. You have no idea if he's going to be good to go to Sunday. Obviously, Packers inside, behind the scenes, they know more than us if he's vaccinated and if he's asymptomatic or not. But the Packers last year, near the end of the last year, during the playoffs, they had a backup punter on their practice squad for a situation exactly like this, Ryan Winslow. And they kept him, Winslow, on the practice team and kept him through this training camp and let go of him after this preseason. Then the Arizona Cardinals picked him up, and then they just released him this past week. So I'd say it's very possible that Winslow could be signed Friday, Saturday to come here, kick, just punt for us for one game. It doesn't have to be great, but just something better than Mason Crosby's attempt in the preseason. Other than that, at punter, I don't know what their options could be. They could bring back J.K. Scott. God forbid. I don't want it to come back to that. Who knows, though? Kurt, he's showing us some tape in the pregame where he can punt some balls. He can bomb them. So it'll be interesting to see what they do at punter. Another group that has been hit hard with COVID and dealing with injuries is the interior defensive line group. The Packers defense is coming off one of definitely their worst run defense performance against Nick Chubb and the Cleveland Browns this Christmas Day. And now they have Kingsley Keke placed on the list. Granted, he was also out this past week against Cleveland for a personal cause. And then also Tyler Lancaster is dealing with a back injury. So they are pretty decimated there amongst the defensive line. Offensive guard, Ben Braden, was also placed on that list. So the offensive line room was really thin already. And now they are just like, I can't even show with my fingers how close they are to having to throw out, I would say Mercedes Lewis, but he's on that list. I mean, they're close to having to throw out Adam Stinovich on there. They're in a really bad spot. So hopefully, you got to pray even more than we already were for no more injuries along that offensive line. Finally, one more thing I wanted to point out was Tipa Naliai. It's spelled Galea. That's the biggest mystery. His last name, man. I don't know. But anyways, Tipa, he got a significant amount of snaps last week against Cleveland. I'm not sure why. He's not doing too well on stopping the run or setting the edge at all. I get you want to give Preston Smith, Rashawn Gary some rest. But obviously the Packers like him out there for some reason on the run defense. Didn't work too well. So now, once again, a really, really thin room at outside linebacker. Obviously, thankfully, we have Rashawn and Preston still, but outside of that, man, they're definitely going to have to activate somebody from the practice squad for this upcoming game. That's all I have for you. Hopefully Friday, Saturday comes, and we get a lot of these players back from the COVID list, and we're looking at a much better situation. But right now, Packers got an interesting outbreak on their hands, and they'll have to find a way to deal with it against the division opponent Minnesota Vikings at Lambeau Field this weekend. I appreciate you watching this video. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel and follow us on all the social medias. We will have our podcast episode out tomorrow morning with Andrew Herman of the Pack-A-Day podcast. Always a great time to talk with Andy, so make sure you're on the lookout for that. All I got for you. Talk to you later. Go Pack Go.